Welcome back, True Seeker. Getting off to a late start this evening. Apologies, sweet girl. She just didn't want to go to bed tonight. But yes, it is still May 6th in the United States, already May 7th in a lot of parts of the world, including in India and Pakistan, where a war between two nuclear nations is on the verge, at least according to reports. If you've missed the latest, India conducted a precise attack on Pakistan at 9 targets at 1:44 a.m. May 7th their time. We're going to get to what a ritual this is and who is behind that ritual and how it couldn't be any more clear. We're going to talk about why it happens the same day the Conclave gathers at the Vatican to vote on the new pope, and why on the same day Real ID, which came out of September 11th, is being implemented. Of course, you think September 11th, you think Osama bin Laden, the man born in 57, 5'7" in the world, Osama supposedly killed in Pakistan. We're going to put it all together because this is all major league ritual, and it will definitely remind you that all roads do lead to Rome. And I want to start by just playing a little clip of what's buzzing in the news tonight. We'll hear the way the news covers it, instilling a lot of fear, and then we'll unpack it and see what's really going on and what people need to wake up to, because if humanity would wake up to what's actually going on, all of this could be stopped. So without further ado, here's the nightly news regarding the military attack by India and Pakistan, and how this could result in a much larger war, with larger wars brewing already in the Middle East. Israel versus the region. The people in Israel that are referred to as Jewish, coming from Khazaria, where the war's going with Russia and Ukraine. And now this, between two nations that were once controlled by Britain. Of course, in 1947, India and Pakistan were partitioned, and it's a reminder that the British were also controlling what we now call Israel before it was handed over to the Ashkenazis after the Nazis. But anyway, let's listen.
Breaking news that we're following tonight overseas, almost what the congressman was talking about. 6 in the morning right now in Pakistan, where Pakistan claims to have just shot down 2 Indian fighter jets. Whether that actually happened or not, we don't know. But what we do know is that India launched missiles across the border into Pakistan. At least 3 civilians, again, according to the Pakistanis, died. And 3 civilians died in India when Pakistan retaliated. This is some of the aftermath in Pakistan-administered Kashmir. That's the disputed land between the two countries. So why does any of this matter, little skirmishes in this mountainous region between India and Pakistan? It's very simple. Because a war between the two of them would be the first time 2 nuclear-armed nations have engaged in direct conflict. It does not take long for this to escalate. And it already has, the conflict on this border, just days before Donald Trump heads to the Middle East.
No, it's a shame. We just heard about it just as we were walking in the doors of the Oval. Just heard about it. I guess people knew something was going to happen based on a little bit of the past. They've been fighting for a long time. You know, they've been fighting for many, many decades and centuries, actually, if you really think about it. No, I just hope it ends very quickly.
Now, right now, it's not ending. It's escalating. India reportedly struck 9 sites, killing at least 8 people. Initial assessments show military sites were not hit, but Pakistan is and has vowed to retaliate. That leads to an all-out war. Tonight, major airlines are avoiding Pakistani airspace in the event of retaliatory strikes. You can see that big open area right now on your screen. That's as planes are flying around so they don't get hit with surface-to-air missiles. India says the strikes were in response to a deadly terror attack in Kashmir a month ago. More than 26 people died then. So let's put this in perspective and why this is so important to you at home. This is just the latest foreign policy crisis for the Trump administration to juggle. They've got Ukraine, they have got Taiwan, they have got Iran, they have got North Korea, and now what nobody had on their 2025 bingo card India, and Pakistan. And China loves this. If this escalates, or maybe I should say when it does, it is going to focus attention on the Trump administration about who will be the adult in the room to move the chess pieces. And there is going to be a lot of focus on Donald Trump going forward. Trump loves to talk about his best friend, the Indian Prime Minister, and perhaps some questions about whether he needs to pick up the phone and call him quickly.
Thank you for watching.
Okay, so he said nobody had it on their bingo card that this would happen with Pakistan and India. Yeah, except for the people who are actually behind it. And as I always talk about, it's the Jesuits. And I prove it every time too. And it's sad that the world has not learned to see what we're showing here day after day as actual proof. That is the real problem right now, that humanity is so slow to pick up what we're putting down, because it really is undeniable. And people need to get over their lack of understanding, which is their basis and their excuse for why they're not accepting this information. The knowledge that the Jesuits use is occult knowledge that goes back to the beginning of language. And it is clear as day when you become aware of this, that they did implement the calendar. Again, anyone can look that up. The Jesuits gave us the calendar that says this war has begun on May 7th, 2025. And they did implement and standardize the English alphabet with 26 letters as we know it at the same moment in history. And to make a long story short about the day this war has broken out, the superior general, again, the superior general, that's what they call the leader of the Jesuits, because they are a military order that serves the Vatican. They operate worldwide in 112 countries, including in India and Pakistan. For all you guys that think the small hats run everything, the small hats have very little influence in places like China and India and Pakistan, but who is there is the Jesuits. They've been there for longer than the United States of America has existed by a long shot. Notice, it is the 177th day of the superior general's age. And the leader of India is Draupadi Murmu. What does her name equal in gematria? It equates to 177. What does New World Order equate to? 177. What does the Jesuit order equate to? 177. You look at this number, you'll find that it's in a lot of world leaders' names, including names like Benjamin Netanyahu. And don't forget how Netanyahu exited Israel as the leader in a big Jesuit ritual, and then returned in a major Jesuit ritual on Albert Pike's birthday anniversary, the same man who published the letter on the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th, 1871, about 3 world wars to come, and how the Third World War would be centered on political Zionism, something that hardly existed on the world stage at that point in history. Of course, there was no Zionist nation, not yet, in 1871. And the publishing date on the Jesuit order's birthday and who that letter was addressed to, Mazzini, who was the second leader of the Illuminati, which was a real thing and obviously still is. Again, the Illuminati that was founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt. Again, here we are, all these years later, and major war breaking out again in ancient Khazaria between Russia and Ukraine, where the Zionist people came from, if you will. Then the war breaks out in the perfect Jesuit ritual on Putin's birthday in Israel. And now as things are seeming to wind down with Russia and Ukraine, all of a sudden, another big drop in the building World War III narrative bucket between India and Pakistan. And like I said a minute ago, India and Pakistan territories controlled by Britain, when the phrase is the sun never sets on Britain. Of course, the Jesuits, the Catholic Church, they venerate the sun. Catholic Church with a long history in the UK. But again, the UK controlled this territory until 1947 when they partitioned it. And it's just like how they controlled Israel until the United Nations voted on making it a nation. here in the United States, Team America World Police, where we speak English and where we never really did get free from Britain, we're just an expansion of that same empire. Again, this is the point. The church, Europe, nations like Britain, which have colonized the world, and seemingly purposefully set up borders between lands that used to be one simply so they can play these games. It's like, look at what they did to the Middle East after World War II. They drew all these supposed invisible lines and said this nation's here and this nation's here, and a lot of people look at that and say, well, look at how they did that, how they pitted, this religious sect on this side of the border versus this religious sect. It's almost like they drew up these nations for the intention of keeping these neighbors at odds. So there would always be tension and the need for war. Again, war is a basis of income for the people who rule over us, which are largely central bankers. And again, when it comes to the Jesuits, see, a lot of people have this idea that the central bankers are all small hats. But who are the first bankers in world history? They are the Templars, military order of the Catholic Church, because they had the means to protect people's assets. They were some of the most advanced militaristic people on the face of the earth because they were well financed by the church, one of the wealthiest things in existence. Again, the Templars are the original bankers. And again, it's just people don't know the actual real history of anything at this point. They're caught up in all the lies and half-truthers. You turn on YouTube and go to almost any supposed truth channel, they're blaming everything on small hats this, small hats that. No. That is bad information. That is bad intel. That's coming from people who don't know anything about history. That's coming from people who can't even see what's going on in the moment. Again, if small hats ran the world, Israel wouldn't have gotten the worst of the scandemic. They had to take more experimental pokey-dokes than anybody. I'll say it again. When this nation, the United States, was being founded, there were no founders warning about small hats. There were founders warning about the Jesuits who were in suppression at the time and how this nation could be subverted if the Jesuits came out of suppression, which happened not long after the nation was founded. They came out of suppression in the time of James Madison's presidency. And in fact, they came out of suppression 144 days after James Madison's birthday. I just said the Jesuit order equals 177. Drop the from it. Jesuit order equals 144, like the United States of America. And with regards to this attack today by India in Pakistan, what time are they saying the attack happened at? They're saying it happened at 1:44 a.m. 1:44 a.m. on the 177th day of the Superior General's age. When again, the president's name equals 177, like New World Order, like the Jesuit order. And New World Order, think about that phrase in light of the church. When you think New World alone, do you not think of what they taught us in the history books about Christopher Columbus, whose voyage was paid for by the Catholic Church, who discovered the New World, the West, where all these brown people were, that were either genocided or made to convert to Catholicism? And with that second point made, that's another reason people need to break their religious spell. Pretty much everyone who's been indoctrinated into the Christian faith is, somebody who was made to do so or else. If you don't convert, off with your head. There was a lot of that going on over here in the Americas. And just think about that. Some of you guys are so bent on this religion, like it's the ultimate truth. It's something that was forced on the people of the world. Again, the Bible is a book full of contradictions. It's a book that's clearly not the Word of God. It's a confused book. The gentleman who I recommended, he just put out a great video on contradictions that every Christian should acknowledge in their Bible and explain how they could possibly exist if it is the Word of God, as so many people believe. He shows how in two different spots in the Bible. In one part in the Bible, it says Jesus carried his own cross. In another part, it says Simon carried the cross. Two different people killed Goliath. Same Goliath, two different people. How can this be? Two different accounts of the same story. In one part of the Bible, it talks about how God never changes his mind. In another part, it talks about how God changes his mind. On and on and on. Like I've said, this religion came from the same people who control your news. And I think they've done this on purpose. You watch the news, it's very conflicting. You don't know what to think or believe. You know? It's some form of psychological manipulation. Makes people almost just give up and let somebody else explain it to them. Explain how that can possibly be. Let some authority tell you what it is. And you see, that's what most people want. They just want to be told by authorities what things are. Very few people question the authorities. This goes from if you're a kid in Sunday school to a kid in the classroom. You know, I was that annoying kid to a lot of my teachers, questioning everything because things were meant to be questioned. Telling me that Adolf, the small mustache man, he offed himself, but his body was never found. How can that be something I'm learning about in a textbook? He offed himself, but his body was never found? How is this being taught to me right now? That doesn't make any sense. His body was never found, but he offed himself. In what world does that make sense? It doesn't make any sense. Christopher Columbus discovered the Americas, where people lived, where millions of people lived. How does that make sense? Why is he credited with the discovery of a land where millions of people lived? I wish they would have, if you've never read Howard Zinn's People's History of America, in that book, he has journal entries from Christopher Columbus and people who were part of his entourage. Look up Howard Zinn's A People's History of America. It's near the beginning of the book. I haven't read it for 20-some years now, but I won't forget. I thought, man, if this information's been out there all this time, why didn't they share this while I was going to 13 years of slave school, pledging to 13 stripes? Literally, these people journaled about how easy it was to rape the native women because they couldn't do anything about it. These people had guns, kill the men, rape the women. They're writing journal entries. Oh, man, it's easy to conquer these people. Having a field day, raping all these brownies over here. And think about that. We're in a nation where we're celebrating that. We're doing Christopher Columbus Day. It's like, oh, the proud murderer rapist. What a great holiday to celebrate. And then in a way, it starts to make sense when your eyes open up. You're like, oh, wait a minute. This is what we do to the world. We're a genocidal nation. We're a nation that likes to kill brown people. A lot of our soldiers that went over to 9/11 or to the Middle East after 9/11, they now have on part of their resume that they've raped some brown women too. There's quite a few soldiers who've gone over there, raided these homes, raped brown women. They're carrying on the legacy of Christopher Columbus from the nation that celebrates Columbus Day. The nation's capital's in the District of Columbus. You guys should look up what day they say Christopher Columbus died. In his storybook, it says he died on Cannonball Day. It's a day that's very important to the Jesuits. The day Ignatius was shot with a cannonball. But yeah, look at this stuff just day after day. Day after day, day after day, we're able to just show these perfect patterns every day. And it's funny, 2 days ago, somebody uploaded a video to the internet criticizing this exact thing. They're like, Zach tries so hard to line things up with the Jesuits. He'll say the Jesuit Order 177, and then the next decode, he'll do Jesuit Order 144 without the. Explain that. And it's like, who's uploading these videos? How many times have I shown this exact thing where the exact same two numbers come together? 177, 144. Here's the attack on the 177th day of the Superior Journal's Age at 1:44 in the morning. You want another classic example of where 177 and 144 come together? How about JFK? Dead 177 days after his own birthday, 144 days from meeting the Pope. And there's a lot more where that came from. The only reason I'm pointing these things out is because they are so. Because this is how they're operating. Also, just coming back to this ritual. This attack happened on the first of the last 239 days of the year. Military operation equates to 239. And for the record, 239 is the 52nd prime number. The word Pope is 52. On this same day, the Conclave is gathering to begin voting on the new Pope, when we're on this Jesuit calendar with a 52-week year named after the Pope. It's kind of like when Pope Francis spoke in Washington, D.C., he did so on September 23rd. That day can be written 23/9 like 239, the 52nd prime. It's the same day in history that Trump took on the protesters of the flag in the year of Super Bowl 52, when the flag was sewn at 239 Arch Street in Philadelphia, and Trump has the same birthday as the flag. And he took office while the flag was 239 years old. And that year, Philadelphia won Super Bowl 52. Again, Zach Ertz, number 86, scored the winning touchdown 86 days after his birthday, when the national anthem was adopted 86 years before that season. And that whole season was about the protest of the flag and the national anthem. Perfect ritualism. Perfect script. Another thing we called out a mile in advance, exactly what that Super Bowl would be. And as I said, if the Eagles win, it's going to be Zach Ertz to score the game winner at 30-1 odds. The value of this knowledge, big time, lucrative. But anyway, again, there's 4 base ciphers of the English language: alphabetic order, reverse alphabetic order, both orders with numerology applied. Again, military operation 239. That's the terminology they used in the news. I didn't just choose that phrase to make it fit. India launches military operation. This is how everyone carried it out. Military operation also equates to 104, as does Roman Catholic Church. What time was the attack at? 1:44 in the morning. Is that the 104th minute of the day? Yes, it is. Don't forget, that was a part of the ritual this weekend at Churchill Downs, with Sovereignty winning the race. Again, another thing we called out before it happened. Just as a recap, if you missed our work on the Kentucky Derby, that was done on Patreon. Congrats to the winners. Thank you to everyone who supports the work. But one of the articles written was that all 19 horses were related to Secretariat, the Triple Crown winner from 73. Secretariat died on 10-4 at age 19. In this race, there were 19 horses, and they pulled horses 10-4 from the race. Secretariat died 188 days after his birthday. Sovereignty won 188 days after last winning a race at Churchill Downs. And 188 is not an arbitrary number. Add up the US dollar bill denominations, the 1, the 2, the 5, the 10, the 20, the 50, the 100. It adds up to 188, just like the phrase Bavarian Illuminati, which again is what was founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt. Now, just about the other Jesuit Catholic fingerprints all over this attack today, it happened to span of 15 days from the April 22nd terrorist attack in Jammu and Kashmir. And remember, that was one day after the United Nations anniversary of Referendum 47 for those 2 locations. Of course, you look into the history of the United Nations, you'll see that the Jesuit fingerprints are all over its creation. It was created in San Francisco, named after St. Francis of Assisi, who created the Franciscan order, which were the precursor to the Jesuits. But anyway, from April 22nd, the terrorist attack that just happened in Jammu and Kashmir, to today's attack was a span of 15 days. War equals 15, the beginning of a war. With regards to Kashmir and Jammu, or Jammu and Kashmir, actually an Indian person reached out to me, shout out to D26, and he said, you're actually supposed to phrase it Jammu and Kashmir. You're supposed to say Jammu first. I don't know why that is. But look at this. Jammu and Kashmir equates to 57. Today, May 7th, can be written 5-7 or 7-5, which we'll get to. But Kashmir and Jammu, where the terrorist attack just happened, 57. Now this war breaks out because of that on the 5th month, 7th day. Kashmir and Jammu also equates to 249. The Illuminati just turned 249 years old on May 1st. Remember, Pakistan is what just got attacked. Bin Laden was killed in Pakistan in May of 2011. And don't forget, he was killed on his 54th day, being 54 years old on May 2nd. 54th day being 54. Jesuit order equals 54. Terrorism equals 54. Terrorist equals 52, like he was killed on 5/2. supposedly, again, in 2011, nearly a decade later, when 9/11 was all about the 11, the massive building in the 11th state that looked like an 11 came down after Flight AA-11 hit it. 11 years to the day of Papa Bush's speech about a new world order, a world free or a tear, only for the World Trade Center to come down. The same man who used to say new world order all the time. But yeah, also just about this Jesuit ritual. The terrorist attack was April 22nd. That's the 112th day of the year. The Jesuits operate in 112 countries. That date can be written 22/4, like 224. The Society of Jesus equals 224. So again, for the person who just made the video the other day saying, how come sometimes you say the Society of Jesus? How come sometimes you say the Jesuit order? How come sometimes you say Jesuit order? How come sometimes you bring up Roman Catholic Church? How come you're asking that question in 2025 when this is probably the 500th time I've done a video just like that, showing how all of these numbers come together perfectly in clearly what is a ritual? And once again, it's synced with their leader. My question to anybody making videos like that, trying to undermine what we're doing, is what's wrong with you? What aren't you getting? Who else would be doing this? These are the people who gave you the calendar and the language as you know it. Why did they do that? What was the point of implementing a new calendar in the 16th century? Why did the world need another language in the 16th century? Why have the Catholic Church and the Jesuits been spreading this calendar and this language across the world through missionary work since that time? Have they implemented a system? Seems quite clear to me that they have. Why are so many people on YouTube completely ignorant about this in 2025 in the information age and still blaming everything on small hats? A lot of you guys need to stop talking and listen more. Somebody was spamming in my comments earlier today about how, Zach, the Jesuits are part of Zionism. How? The Catholic Church and the Jesuits are much older than Zionism. Do you guys who leave those comments, do you even know when Zionism began? Do you know who the father of Zionism is? It's Theodore Herzl. Do you know when he died? He died in 1904. He died at age 44. He died 44 years before Israel was made a nation. He died in the time of cancer. It matters because cancer equals 44, like Israel, like Zion, like kill. Zionism is a relatively new thing. Zionism came in the 20th century, about 400 years after the Jesuits. And remember, when the Jesuits established this Catholic/Jewish nation of Israel, they did it in a major Catholic ritual. They create on the 14th day of the 5th month, like 145. Catholic equals 145, going with the 145 additional chapters in the Jewish section of the Catholic Bible. And don't forget, State of Israel literally equals the Jesuit order. Literally equals Order of Illuminati. And the other parallel is David Ben-Gurion, whose name equals 145 like Catholic, the first prime minister. He died in history 201 days after the anniversary of Israel's establishment, a lot like how Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati, died 201 days after the anniversary of the Illuminati's establishment. Order of Illuminati, State of Israel, the Jesuit order, they all equate to 201. Again, the Jesuit order also equates to 177. The difference is what order you run the alphabet in. And no, we didn't invent any of this. This was written about in books long before yours truly came around. This practice goes back way before any of us were around. It goes back again to the beginning of language. Clearly, it was implemented into the English language, this alphanumeric system, which is a part of every biblical language. And don't forget, the Holy Bible equals 201 as well. And 201 has to do with illumination. That's why it's encoded into the Illuminati. But yeah, just more fear-mongering, more rumors of a larger war. The threat of two nuclear-armed nations. And why are they, why are they both nuclear-armed? You can thank the British for that. You can thank the British. And by the way, here's one other piece. May 7th, the day this goes down, 127th day of the year. 1, 2, 7. We always talk about this with 9/11. Buildings 1, 2, and 7 fell in New York City. They called it the new Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, December 7th, another 127 date. But the phrase ground zero equals 127, like the 9/11 site in New York was called ground zero. And the only definition for ground zero before 9/11 was the point above or below ground where a hydrogen, atomic, or nuclear bomb explodes. The terminology came out of the Manhattan Project, like the World Trade Centers were in Manhattan. And don't forget, Bill Clinton stopped the underground weapons testing program right when he became president. Days later, the 93 World Trade Center bombing happened, the same day that the Hollywood movie Falling Down released. That's set in LA, and the cover is Michael Douglas with the LA skyline behind him. Reminiscent, another huge city with the skyscrapers. Falling Down. And if you've never seen Falling Down, you really should watch it. What'll definitely stand out to you in 2025, if you've never seen the movie, is when he goes in the Korean man's corner store and tells him inflation's ridiculous, and he destroys his store. And inside the store is a street sign that says Corona Street. Because remember, Corona blamed on Asians, a lot of printing of money by the chump, which caused major inflation, like what always happens when you print money. And again, I told you guys before, we got a single check back in 2020 when they floated this idea. I said, just watch. I mean, I was not far off at all. My prediction, it's actually even worse than I predicted. But I said, you watch, a home that's $300,000 right now, it's going to be worth $400,000, maybe more. That was my quote at the time. I said, my dad, who has $400,000 saved to his name and is near retirement, that money's going to be worth a lot less. He'll be able to buy maybe $300,000 worth of goods in his retirement age. And he had to work his whole life to have that $400,000. There's a lot of people. This is what I was saying at the time when they were talking about printing money. I said, everybody who's worked and saved their whole life, having to print this money is going to make all of their savings worth drastically less. And the reality is, a home that was $300,000 then is now $500,000. And I'm speaking from where I live in Washington State. $300,000 homes are now $500,000 thanks to the inflation and the printing of money. And again, inflation only really helps, or you could say more like doesn't hurt, one group of people, and that's the people who have assets. Because if your money's in assets, the assets increase in value with inflation. If you owned 1,000 homes, or like the BlackRocks of the world own God knows how many properties, millions, all those properties they own, they've all gone up in value. So they've been able to keep up with inflation. You have all your money invested in gold. It's like the value of the gold's not really changing, but obviously the price of gold's way up because the money's worth less. You own land, these types of things. If you have your money in assets, the market also largely keeps up with inflation, but the market can also tank, so it's a little bit different. Anyway, the point is, if you have assets, inflation doesn't hurt. But if you're a common person who doesn't have any money saved and you got bills and everything costs more and your wages don't go up, inflation hurts in a major way. And everything they're doing in the world right now is about making it, it's about making Agenda 2021 and Agenda 2030 happen. Actually, it was initially called Agenda 21, and now it's been turned into Agenda 2030. But again, it's about making it so that you have less purchasing power. There's less consumption in the world. They're saying they're doing it in the name of saving the earth, but really they're doing it in the name of having more power and control and influence over people. And you just saw this in the interview Trump did over the weekend, where he was talking about how, sure, the price of dolls are going up, but he's like, you know what? Your child doesn't need to have 30 dolls. They can just have 4 or 5 dolls. Again, I mean, like I told you guys, that's what it's really all about. And maybe in a way it is good, because I do think people consume too much. Look how many people have storage units because they have so much crap. They have to even get a storage unit. Their garage is all full of crap. They got to rent a storage unit to put more crap in. In a way, we are out of control with our consumption. But the point is, the powers that shouldn't be, they lie to us about everything they're doing. Everything they do is sinister, agenda-oriented, deceptive. We never get the truth, but they're leading us along on the path that they want us on, where they have greater control over our lives. We're poor. We're more dependent on the authorities. And notice also what their agenda's full of, just nonstop fear-mongering. Submit or you'll die. Go along with our plan or you'll die. Give up your rights and liberties or a suitcase bomb is going to go off in your neck of town. You heard that nonstop in the news after 9/11. If we didn't submit to the Patriot Act and let the government do all this stuff to keep surveillance over us, it was going to be a dirty bomb in your neighborhood, a suitcase bomb, just nonstop coverage like this in the news. Like almost every night it was fear-mongering like that. They gave us a color scale, red alerts, orange alerts, yellow alerts. Oh, today's actually a green day. And don't forget how it was too, because it's always been a mockery. And that's why people should have known it was all bullshit. Again, it would be like 2 straight weeks of the news of orange and red alerts. And then all of a sudden, there'd be a break in the news. And the story that whole day would be missing blonde girl. Look at this missing blonde girl. It's like, whoa, hold on. The last 2 weeks it's been, we got to have our head on a swivel. We're on really high alert for terrorism in any part of America at any second. But all of a sudden, now today, we don't have to think about any of that. It's just missing blonde girl, huh? Oh, missing blonde. Well, maybe we need more missing blonde girls because seemingly we don't need to worry about getting blown up from dirty bombs when we have a missing blonde girl. That's why it's maddening, you guys. The average person hasn't caught on to just what a load of shit all this stuff is. And look at it now. I mean, they've been having the border open. And actually, they're still trying to do that too. Oh, Biden's border's wide open. A terrorist could come in here and blow us up any day. It's like, well, obviously that's not going on, is it? Obviously that wasn't a real threat, or it would have happened a million times over as open as the border's been, so they tell us. Again, when are people going to wake up to the fact that all they're doing is feeding you loads of shit every day, and the only real terrorists are the government and authorities? And I don't know why that should be a surprise to anyone. That's only a surprise to anyone who doesn't know anything about anything. Because what was the original definition of terrorism? Government by intimidation. And understanding that original definition of terrorism, which is government by intimidation, how could you ever say your government is not a terrorist organization? Is it not constantly trying to scare you out of your rights and liberties? How isn't it? That's all it's done for the 21st century. A decade straight with the terrorism crap. Then when that cooled off, it was the Cooties 19. You know what I mean? A major drug war, and the more we spend on the drug war, the more and more drugs that end up in America. Don't you see it's all a lie? How could you not see it? Okay, so with regards to these Catholics, on the same day the war's beginning with India and Pakistan, the Conclave is meeting to vote on the next pope. And like I said, this is the first of the last 239 days of the year, which is the 52nd prime number, and Pope is 52. But more importantly, the word conclave is 75. The majority of the world writes the date 7/5, the 7th day of the 5th month. Conclave, 75. Catholic Church, 75. Roman Catholic, 75. For the record, New World Order equals 75 and 177. Like how you have all these crazy events happening today, the war, a new war escalating, the real ID, the conclave on the 177th day of the Jesuit leader's age. New World Order, 75, 177. A decade ago, I was telling people in my YouTube videos, just wait until Israel's 75 years old. I said a war is going to start in Israel when it is 75 years old. I must have said it 1,000 times. I used to have a post about it on my old website that Google deleted, talking about, and the reason I had this theory was because, understanding how significant 75 is, but also because if you look up the New York Times article from October 6th, 1940, 33 years to the day later, the Yom Kippur War would start. And notice the latest war in Israel started one day after that anniversary. But October 6, 1940, you can look up the headlines from the New York Times, which has always been run by Jesuits. The headline was New World Order Pledged to Jews. If you doubt that's the real headline, look it up and prove me wrong. October 6th, 1940, New World Order Pledged to Jews. If you think about that headline, you have to say, well, if it's pledged to Jews, that means somebody pledged it. Who would that be? Who would have pledged it to the Jews? 10 plus 6 plus 19 plus 40 is 75. New World Order equals 75. Catholic Church equals 75. This is a headline from a Jesuit-controlled newspaper. I brought this back up the day that Netanyahu came back into power, which was December 29th, 2022. I said, look at this. Netanyahu comes back on Albert Pike's birthday, the man who wrote the letter about 3 world wars to come, where the third would be based on political Zionism. And I said, not long before May 14th, 2023, the year and day that Israel will turn 75 years old. And anyone can still watch my video on this. It's on the channel Gematria Effect News 22. Just go, it's dated December 29th, 2022. I talked about the war that will come in Israel in the year, and to look for it to happen sometime around Yale turning 322 years old, which happened October 9th of that year. The war in Israel began October 7th, the anniversary of the U.S. invading Afghanistan after 9/11. That's also Putin's birthday. It's the day leaving 85 days left in the year. Templar equals 85. The Jesuit motto, Isus Hominum Salvator, equals 85. Crucify's 85. Again, the Jesuit logo is the Templar cross with the letters IHS for Isus Hominum Salvator. It's the same day in history that we invaded Afghanistan after 9/11, and Bush called it a crusade, something waged by the Templars on behalf of the church. But yeah, again, I mean, the war started 2 days before Yale turned 322 years old. And of course, at Yale, the Skull and Bones, Order 322, who get their symbolism from the Templars. That's why I said it would probably happen around that time. There's always the October surprise. But yeah, again, spot on prediction. And anyway, coming back to this, Conclave 75, Catholic Church 75, Roman Catholic 75. The date can also be written 5-7. Rome equals 57. All roads lead to Rome. What day did the Pope die? Remember, the Pope died on April 21st, Rome's birthday. The day in history Rome was created, so the history books say. But again, it's evidence of who uses this system. That's the point in looking at all these things. Why is it so perfectly lined up every day? When I first came into the truth community, I was on the same wavelength that almost everybody is, that it's the small hats. It's the small hats. I thought the same thing. And a big reason I thought that was because of something CBS 60 Minutes did. After 9/11, they aired the story about the dancing Israelis arrested in New Jersey who were in New Jersey to document the 9/11 attacks and how the U.S. government sent them back to Israel. To me, that all seems super suspect. And I also saw how Ehud Barak, the leader of Israel at the time, had told the United States that they needed to conduct a war on terror and go into Afghanistan and Iraq, which is exactly what we ended up doing. And I said, wow, so Israel's telling us what to do, dancing Israelis. Obviously, it's them. But as time went on, doing research, learning more, I said, well, wait a minute. Is somebody using Jews as like the boogeyman? Are they setting them up as the shield to make it look like it's them? How come everybody in the truth community, the only name they know is Rothschild? Do you know what that name means? It means red shield. Do you know who had red shields? The Templars. You know how on the Balfour Declaration, the thing written up in World War I, made out to a Rothschild about establishing a Zionist state in Palestine? Look up how that Rothschild that's addressed ended up dying. He ended up dying 201 days from his birthday. That's the number and mark of the Jesuits. Undeniably. The order that's been 201 since they were created in the 16th century. That's what a lot of people need to wrap their mind around. The Jews are being used, again, just like I can point to headlines from the Jesuit New York Times, New World Order pledged to Jews. It's a setup. The church is what is running the show. And think about how big Catholicism is to Judaism. Is there any Jewish military in the world outside of Israel? No. The Jesuits claim to run 112 militaries in the world. I understand that. Yeah, trust me. Somebody out there's like, did you see the 60 Minutes interview with the Mossad agent this year? Exactly my point. Yeah, on 60 Minutes, right. The same one that told you the story about the dancing Israelis and made it look like it was Israel after 9/11, for anybody who was looking into things. And isn't it funny how 60 Minutes has never had so much attention until the 60th election? Don't forget the first decade the Jesuits were with the Catholic Church, their order was limited to 60 members, and the word order itself equals 60. Okay, so yeah, anyway, the conclave begins on 7/5. And if you missed all my work on the death of the Pope, definitely get caught up on that. His death was literally synced with the movie Conclave. And don't forget, when he got hospitalized, it was right before the Oscars, where Conclave was one of the most nominated films. And that film released in the U.S. on the day leaving 67 days left in the year. Pope dies 67 days from being hospitalized. Dies on the 111th day of the year. And has his funeral 111 days from the Jesuit order's birthday, when Jorge Mario Bergoglio equals 111 the small way, 201 the big way. And he died 201 days from St. Francis of Assisi's death, who he was named after. Not to mention everything else we covered. Again, if you missed the work on the Pope, definitely check it out. It's undeniable how ritualistic it all is. And again, this real ID thing, it's really, to me, the biggest story of the day for May 7th. A national ID was first debated by our Congress in 1968, 57 years ago. And now it's going to be implemented on the date that we write 5/7, like 57. 1968. The year of years, as I've talked about so many times. Remember, the Real ID law was passed and written and signed into being 20 years ago by George W. Bush, the president when 9/11 happened. So the Real ID law that's now being implemented, it's been on the books for 20 years. It took them 20 years essentially to implement it. And you can see why. But the point was, the law happened after 9/11. 9/11 was the driving force behind getting this legislation made and this idea for a national federal ID. In 1968, when this was first debated, it was not passed because it was decided that it was too authoritarian. It was too much centralized information by the federal government. It had the means to create a police state. It had the means to allow the feds to have too much control over its citizens, and people could be destroyed for political reasons. All of these were good reasons for this not to happen. But 9/11 changed everything, right? 9/11, all of a sudden we needed security. We needed to sacrifice liberty for security. The one thing Benjamin Franklin said you should never do. He said, those who sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither. But again, 1968, this first debate in 68, the year 911 was made the National Emergency Dialing Code, the year World Trade Center construction began in New York, the year Boeing debuted their jumbo jetliners, the year that George W. Bush got out of Yale Skull and Bones, the year Timothy McVeigh was born, the year Muhammad Atta was born, the year the New York Jets won their only Super Bowl, Super Bowl III. Like, the 3 jets that supposedly hit targets on that date. And then it was the New York Jet that took out Mo Lewis, it was the New York Jet Mo Lewis who took out Drew Bledsoe that gave rise to Tom Brady and the Patriots at the time of the Patriot Act. And again, Drew Bledsoe went to school in Washington State, and that's where Boeing is, and that's where Magnus and Clementic is, and that was one of the main contractors for the World Trade Center. And Washington State's also where the man who designed the World Trade Centers was from. Don't forget that Seattle, Washington has a gematria value of 68, as does the word terror. Yeah, Papa Bush was in the CIA in 68, the same man who gave the speech 11 years to the day, September 11th, 1990, about a new world order, a world freer of terror. Papa Bush was also the 11th director of the CIA. But yeah, all of these things that went down in 68, including the assassinations of MLK and RFK and fentanyl being approved by the feds and coronavirus being coined, all these things in 68, including the roots of Real ID, which is now 57 years ago as it gets implemented on May 7th. And also noteworthy, I often talk about the four base ciphers, the four ciphers of the language. As I've said so many times, the most important cipher outside of the four base ciphers is known as Jewish gematria, or Derek on his calculator, gematrianer.com, has renamed it Latin. He's color coded it purple. If you use his website, gematrianer.com. If you use my website, gematriaeffect.news, it's the calculator's there as well. It's known as Jewish there, which is its traditional name. Anyway, Real ID equates to 119, and it's being implemented in the time of the 119th Congress, and it's being implemented largely out of the 11th of September. The 11th of September, right? A lot of the world writes the date 11/9. By the way, in that same cipher, Vatican Hill equals 911. Jihadist equals 911. Al-Qaeda terrorist attack equals 911. Division equals 911. It's a very interesting cipher. And, of course, none of those things are an accident. But, yeah, Real ID 119, like Donald, like here we are in the time again of the 119th Congress that it's being implemented. And I did do a short video on this earlier. I missed something major. This Congress, the 119th, it took office January 3rd. That means the day it's implemented, May 7th, is the 125th day of this 119th Congress's existence. The phrase police state equals 125. That was literally the terminology used in 1968 for why a national ID should not be created, because of a potential police state. If you apply numerology, instead of 125, police state equates to 44. From September 11, 2001 to the day that George W. Bush signed this legislation into being, which was May 11, 2005, that was exactly 44 months on the nose. Police state 125-44. The congressman who created the Real ID Act was Jim Sensenbrenner of Wisconsin. Wisconsin equals 125-44. The five-pointed star is what goes on the Real ID. The five-pointed star was important to Rome. Stella d'Italia is what the five-pointed star is known as in Rome. Funny enough, it equals 125-44 as well. So police state, Wisconsin, Stella d'Italia, all 125-44. I mean, you talk about impossible coincidences. Also, funny enough, Jim Sensenbrenner equates to 248. That's how old the United States of America is right now, 248 years old. While the country's 248, this gets implemented. Other things that matter about this identification going in 57 years after it was first debated on 5/7. Keep in mind, May 7th is the 127th day of the year. Scottish Rite of Freemasonry equals 127. Again, a lot of the rites of the Scottish Rite were written by Jesuit priests. DC's the Jesuit Masonic stronghold. The House of the Temple, the Scottish Rite headquarters is there. Scottish Rite alone equates to 57. 5/7, the 127th day of the year. Fitting day to pay tribute to one of the foundational secret societies in this nation's history. And keep in mind, the highest degree of the Scottish Rite is 33. 1968 to September 11th, 2001. That's 33 years later. 911 made the code in 68. World Trade Center construction began in New York in 68. Bush Jr., again, out of Yale Skull and Bones in 68. The alumni of Skull and Bones, Bonesman, equals 33. Now, again, May 7th can also be written 7-5. The word identification equals 75. Obviously, Real ID. ID short for identification. Get New World Order 75. You want to travel? Got to have a passport now or a real ID. And they're saying in 2 years, they're going to get rid of the passport part and everybody has to have a real ID. So they're giving us a window of time. 2 years from now, everybody has to have the real ID to travel. Unless something changes. But right now, that's what they're reporting. And again, this is going down on the 177th day of the Superior General's Age. New World Order, 75, 177. Yeah, again, I showed a video earlier of another YouTuber who's been in the game for a long time. And he's saying this whole thing is a Zionist plot. And he's implementing in his video a 6-pointed Star of David or Seal of Solomon over using the graphic of that to put it over the card. And it's like, I mean, dude, it's not a 6-pointed star on the thing. So why are you doing that? And this is another person who's, he's mocked my work a couple times and gaffed at the idea of Jesuits running the show when literally the founders warned about the Jesuits, when literally Abe Lincoln blamed the American Civil War on the Jesuits. I don't understand how people can be gaffing at the Jesuits and blaming everything on Jews when, seriously, where's the evidence? If you're having to make your video and create a graphic of a Star of David and put it in your video over the ID, why are you doing that? I don't have to do that. I'm just using all the information that's actually here. All the facts, the history of how national ID was said, it was poo-pooed in 68 because of the police state threat. And now here we are as they implemented on the 125th day of the Congress when police state equals 125. Synced up with the Superior General. And wouldn't it make sense that it would be the Roman Catholic Church? They're the same ones that wanted to totally control the European population they used to govern over, which caused a lot of them to cross the Atlantic to come over here where they asked for freedom of religion and freedom, the right to have the freedom from religion. They didn't want to be unjustly taxed and feed like what the church did to people once upon a time. So yeah, I'm hoping in the near future, we're going to get Mr. Brian, who I'm talking about, formerly of High Impact Flicks, who did his little 6-pointed star today for Real ID, to have a real conversation. Because we need, if we can't get people like him to acknowledge this, what's going on, and talk about this and share this information, I don't know who else we can, because he is somebody who spends every day talking about how bad the two-party system is, how the federal government needs to be done away with, how news media is nothing but propaganda. He checks every box of what matters, and I agree with, but then he gaffes at the Jesuits and blames everything on Jews when there is literally no evidence for what he's saying. He's having to use an image and put it over the thing to make his argument, something that's not even there. By the way, for some more jokes, did you see the fake bullet photo from the New York Times, the Jesuit New York Times? Did you see that Doug Mills got the Pulitzer Prize for that fake image? That's where we are in 2024 and 2025. A fake Photoshop image wins the Pulitzer Prize. And have you looked at the Gematria Pulitzer Prize? Because it equals 201, 84, and 69, just like the Jesuit order. It also equates to 150, like Illuminati, which again was founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt. Remember, Butler equals 84. Trump returned to Butler 84 days after the shooting hoax. United States of America equals 84. The Jesuit order equals 84. The Catholic Church equals 84. Jesuit alone equals 84. George Orwell's 1984. This is like right out of there. Pulitzer Prize for a Photoshop, for a clearly fake photo and a clearly hoax of a shooting. And look at the people in this nation. Look at how many people in the nation think God saved Trump from the shooting hoax. Think about how dumb you got to be. And that is the real problem, how they have literally made people just so dumb it can't even be put into words. I mean, if you fell for 1 second for the Trump shooting hoax, you are functionally retarded. And we need to bring that word back, because most people are. Did you see Mark Carney and the Chump got together today on 5-6 in the U.S.? Two Jesuit-educated men on 5-6. Society of Jesus equals 56. Washington, D.C. equals 56. It's 51 days after Carney's John 3:16 birthday. He has a March 16th birthday. Remember, he said that they won't become the 51st state. You had the Four Nations face-off for the NHL All-Star event this year. On the 51st day, Canada beat the U.S. in the championship, saying we won't be the 51st state. Or Mark Carney became the interim prime minister 45 days before Canada's 45th election. Defeated the Republican challenger 47 weeks after his birthday. And the election, they said, was about Trump, Mr. 45 and 47. What a joke. What a joke. Two Jesuits, the 56 gang, as we said. You know, Trudeau was a Jesuit too. Back when they were having the trucker convoy thing, I said, watch, the crackdown's going to come 56 days from Trudeau's birthday. That day all over the news. Mounties on horses, trampling protesters, all kinds of crap. 56 days from Trudeau's birthday. Jesuits, super repetitive with their rituals. And also, on Cinco de Mayo, 5-5, Mike Pence did an interview with CNN talking about how price shock is really going to whoop Americans' ass here pretty soon with the tariffs. Again, just take a good look at the base ciphers of price shock and Cinco de Mayo. You'll see it's a triple overlap. 55, Cinco de Mayo does equal 55 like it's on 5-5. 53 and 107. And the one cipher that it's not a match, price shock equals 163. It was the 163rd anniversary of Mexico winning the Battle of Puebla over the Second French Empire. Just a reminder, the Jesuits are from France. But yeah, those are all things buzzing here in the last couple days too. Plus everything else we've already covered. So those were the things I really wanted to share tonight. And we've had people trying to call in the background. If you do want to call in tonight, please make your call on topic. And it is that 509 number if you would like to phone in. And I'm getting us all set up here. If you would like to call in, the system is set up. If you got anything to add to any of tonight's topics, now is the time. Again, we talked about the war, Real ID, the Conclave. No, I didn't spend any time looking into who the next pope might be. Just trying to keep up with enough. Again, the prediction to look into for the recent time was who was going to win the Kentucky Derby, which we nailed. That was the lucrative one. Like I said, I got a little one over here, keeping up with everything else. We could add one more to the resume if we nailed who the next pope's going to be, but yeah, I haven't taken a minute to look into the candidates. Off the top, though, I would, if I had time, I'd go back and look into who J.D. Vance met with, that cardinal, the day he met with the Pope. If you recall, he met with the Pope the day before the Pope died. That was April 20th. And on April 19th, he was meeting with the cardinal who was second in command. And I didn't read much of that article. I just saw the headlines. He did that on Ignatius of Loyola Day, the anniversary of Ignatius of Loyola being recognized as the first superior general. But if I had to guess, I'd imagine it must be the Dallas Cardinal, second in command, because that Dallas Cardinal is now in charge of the Vatican until they elect a new pope. And remember, Dallas is the 214 area code. Pope died on 21/4 after being hospitalized on Valentine's Day, 2/14. What is it? Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, their names 214, like the song Gematria, the killing name, which was performed in honor of the Pope, synced up with his death, performed just before he died by the band Slipknot. Well, okay, so far we don't have any calls coming in, and if we don't have any calls tonight, we can always wrap it up early because I can always use every minute of sleep I can get. Open Up said 5-7 is also 127 days before 9/11. Hey, good catch. Good catch. 9/11 is the 254th day of the year, so yeah. 9/11 is the 254th day, leaving 111 remaining. It must be, it's exactly the halfway point. Yeah, good one. Van Dara said, keep up the good work, Zach. Appreciate that. We got Space Invader. I'll read his message in a second, but first we got a call from 917. What's up, 917?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Zach? How's everything?
Things are all right. How are you?
I'm doing well. You know, when that Real ID thing was getting really big in the past couple of months, there was a picture describing it, and the picture that I kept seeing was a plane taking off from Newark, a United plane with the World Trade Center in the background, and I was like, yo, why are they putting this symbolism out here? Obviously, you know, 127th day of the year, so they have to show, those, United Airlines coming from Newark. We already know Flight 93 left from Newark. So I just, it was just interesting that they kept showing that picture. I was seeing it everywhere. And I think it's 1,234 weeks, 1,234 weeks since 9/11. So, I mean, they have to keep it in some type of order.
Counting.
Another thing I noticed,
I said they're definitely counting 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. I mean, if you put it in like a day calculator, it's
yeah, crazy.
1, 2, 3,
I'm
4
seeing
weeks.
that 1,234 weeks. It really is from September 11th to what's going on right now.
And they're fucking around with the 83 and 38, 238 days, 283 months or something like that. And then they're also, obviously 127 plus 127, 254. That's the day of 9/11. So they put this out for a reason. If you include the end date, you got 8640. That's just an anagram of 846. So they did this for a reason, obviously. We already know this.
Yeah, that's a really great catch.
Rituals today, man. Big rituals today with the Pope. It's actually been 20 weeks and 1 day since the Pope died, like of his age. And there was obviously all the 201s happening today.
Wait, hold on. So, I'm not following that because he didn't die 20 weeks and a day ago. How do you mean that?
I'm sorry. No, sorry. His birthday. Sorry, my bad. His birthday was 20 weeks and 1 day ago. So it's just, a lot of rituals happened today with the 201 in sports. Also with the big skull and bones ritual with the Giants today and Willie Mays. So they were doing hella rituals today in the sports and in the news and stuff like that today.
Yeah, really every day if you're paying attention. But yeah, some days are bigger than others. So.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, dude, if you have the time, I don't. You don't have to do this. But if you literally if you see my phone number, you take the first 6 digits, you subtract the last 4. My phone number is 911322 when you subtract the 6 from the 4. So I've had this phone number since I was in 5th grade in 2008. So I was definitely meant to know this stuff. My full name equals satanic is 911. So, I've definitely was put on here to like do this as well. So you just being like the pioneer to this is just an amazing thing that people really cannot deny. It's just the numbers don't lie, and they never do. And this event that they're doing tomorrow with the Real ID, and then we have the Newark airport, people are losing their minds or whatever over there. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. You probably did. Yeah. So
yeah,
and then they put out the picture of all the pictures of all the Real ID is just planes taking off from Newark saying Real IDs are required, and then they're like the least compliant with the Real ID. I mean, it's just people need to wake up and realize that it's just they're putting it in, controlling us. So.
Exactly. That's what they do to us. We're trolled every day by these people. I usually use the word mocked, but it's the same thing. Yeah, and people don't catch on to it. It's pathetic. When you tell people about Event 201, how they simulated the scandemic on the day the military World Games began in Wuhan, China, people are like, they shrug their shoulders. Like, how can you shrug your shoulders at that?
CNN, right? It was a global news network. CNN was the Event 201 news source, right? Something like that.
I got to go back and double check.
And also the code. You talk a lot about the 199, the 119, the 911. I didn't hear you mention it in the live stream. I don't know if you did, but I've been coding games on my Patreon, and I've been using the same word, all seeing eye, and it's been hitting in different ciphers in all these games. Like literally today, I had the Timberwolves. All seeing eye equals 1,000 or was it 1203? That hit. Like literally the word all-seeing eye, and a lot of these ciphers have been hitting for the last 4 days in sports games. If you look at records from certain dates, I chose to look at the Wolves from the date the pandemic was announced. They just got their 201st loss since that day. So I was like, yeah, there you go. Like, it's just the term all-seeing eye has been used insane right now. I don't know why that is, but just that one specifically, I've been seeing just constantly being ritually used in these playoffs. Of course, you have the Knicks playing the Celtics tonight. So on the 127th day, you got Derek White and you have Peyton Pritchard, Mr. 9/11 themselves. Their names actually equals 156, the 9/11's prime number. So we're going to probably see a crazy game tonight with them.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, man.
All
Have
right.
a good one.
Yeah, take care. See you. Yeah, I'm looking at the basketball box scores. I see the Pacers upset again tonight. We thought the Pacers had good numbers to upset Cleveland in game 1 and game 2, and they were big dogs in both. 8.5-point dogs, back-to-back games, winning both. Again, last night, what they did with the Nuggets upsetting the Thunder, that was one of the best upset narratives of all time. And it's sick. It's all about Dikembe Mutombo. Dikembe Mutombo, number 55, died before this season began on 5-5. The Nuggets get their 55th win of the season. Mutombo was part of the first 8 seed to knock off a 1 seed in NBA playoff history. That was the Nuggets beating the Seattle Supersonics. Who are the Seattle Supersonics now? Oh, that's right. They're the Oklahoma City Thunder. Who did the Nuggets beat to get their 55th win on 5-5? They beat the Thunder. They did it exactly 31 weeks after Mutombo died. Denver equals 31. And again, I mean, that's what we talk about year after year. Rig news, rig sports, ritual sacrifice, killing people for these rituals. It's disgusting and repetitive. Space Invader, speaking of sports, he said, have you noticed the New York Jets beat Baltimore? That was in Super Bowl III. That's back with Broadway Joe as the major underdog who guaranteed he was going to beat the Colts. And he said, in 2001, New York played Baltimore in their last game before 9/11. Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. It's just tributes to history. And sadly, you're explaining these types of things to the average American, and you'll get the deer in the headlights look like, so what are you saying? So the NFL set up its schedule for 9/11? It's like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Again, who's the NFL American football credit to? Oh, that's right. The Freemason Walter Camp, who was also a member of Yale Skull and Bones. Who was in office when 9/11 happened? Oh, that's right. The Skull and Bones member George W. Bush, just like his father was a Skull and Bones member who called it out 11 years to the day. And at the House of the Temple in D.C., there's a massive portrait inside of the building of both Bushes. People in their tone and the way they say things like, oh, you know, ridiculous you sound. It's like, no, I don't sound ridiculous. I have information and facts. You think your ignorance makes you holier than thou. That's what gets so maddening about these people. All right. Again, last call for phone calls. Otherwise, we can leave it there for tonight. If you got anything to add on about, well, we got an unknown. I don't really want to take calls from unknown. No, we're not going to do any unknowns tonight. I'm glad you're out there watching, trolls. Thanks for the ratings. But again, if anybody actually wants to call in tonight and talk about Real ID, the war starting in India and Pakistan, the Conclave, maybe you've done the research on who you think is the next cardinal, all of that's welcome. And again, for the trolls that hang around, like literally, what is wrong with you people? What's wrong with you? Are you not annoyed as much as I am about the police state being built around you, the way you're lied to each day? 213 just called in. It only rang one time. I was about to answer your call and it hung up. I don't know if you did that on purpose, 213. All right, they're calling back in. 213, you are on. You got to mute your video. You got to mute your video, 213. You got to mute your video, 213. For anyone who calls in, you got to mute the video when you call in and just talk through your phone.
Are you not annoyed as much as I am?
All right. Sorry, 213. You're going to have to call back and do it right. We don't want to hear the video playing back through the phone. All right, one more try, 213. One more try. Are you there? Two, 1, 3. 213, are you going to talk?
Are you there?
I'm here.
Yeah, no, okay, great. So what's the alternative to the real ID?
You have to mute your video,
Can you hear me?
213. You have to mute your video and talk through the phone. It's very simple.
Okay. No, look, please don't give me a hard time. I'm actually a good person. I'm having. Okay. Are you there?
I'm here.
I actually muted the whole thing. Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, let me. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, please don't be irritated with me for whatever reason. I'm not the one. I would really like to know what the alternative to the real ID is, because I'm probably the last person who's still contemplating this. I'm Generation X. Is that who I am?
I don't know.
X or Z?
I don't know.
You don't know an alternative to the real ID?
Oh, well, you asked me what generation you were. That's what I didn't know. The
No,
alternative to the real
I'm
ID
tired.
is just not getting it. Just not getting the real ID is the alternative. Really, that's what everyone needs to do. Fine, I'm not going to travel anymore. Again, everyone needs to not comply whenever they bring about these agendas. Had everybody said no to the jab, they wouldn't have been able to say, okay, fine, nobody can work, nobody can go to school. They're just going to say, okay, we give up. Never mind, you don't have to get the jab. You guys are too smart. If everybody says, no, I'm not getting real ID, then they're going to have to say, all right, fine, we won't follow through with the real ID thing. Everyone needs to say, no, we do not consent to your plan.
Have you gotten the real ID?
No, I have not gotten the real ID. No, I have not.
Okay, you haven't. Okay, no, this is great. This is great. Look, I've called you a long time ago, and last time I made you laugh. I forget the guy's name, DK or D something out of California, called me the Looper Girl. I'm the paralyzed lady in the wheelchair who's killing it. Okay, and I actually just called you unidentified, so not everybody's a troll. But whatever, you have my phone number now. It doesn't matter. I'm at the point now where it's like, I'm going to take the risks. Okay? I'm going to take the risks. I'm calling you. You got my number. Great. Okay? But I need to know how this is going to go down, because not taking the real ID, this has been talked about for so long. I mean, I'm like I said, I can't remember what they called the generation, but I was there with all these other people. Name them. There's so many of them that in the mainstream, out of the mainstream, I went like you, okay? You call it pounding pavement or whatever. I did all these protest things, okay? And I'm one of the few that's actually fighting this. And I know there's something to what you're saying about this gematria, because all of my cases keep falling on the same days. And then I listen to your thing and I'm like, okay, it's another one of these stupid holidays, but I'm still in it. Okay. I mean, I beat a treasurer on property taxes. You want to talk about how you complain. And when I say you complain, I complain too. Okay. If everybody, not only did I not take the jab, I didn't wear a mask, and I wore a GoPro 6 months out of my life and went through the court system without a mask. And it's some very interesting stuff. And I just dropped a bomb on a court deal that I'm dealing in Florida, and they're freaking out because when everyone was doing these Zoom things, these bullshit Zoom things, because that's what they want to do with the courts. The courts is actually a place where people can fight and win. I have won. It's not easy, okay? Because I'm one of the few, like you. If there was more people doing what I'm doing what you're doing what a few other people that I know and are doing, of course, it would be better. And I don't mean to go on a rant right now. It's just that this is a lot of pent up stuff, because I have 2 months to make a decision. Do I do this real ID or not? And I don't want to, but I'm thinking, like, how is this going to affect me? Now, when you say traveling, that's not an issue. That's not the issue. Okay, the issue is commerce, right? Banks, cashing money, all that other stuff. So I'm going to be quiet because I'm looking for alternatives. And if I don't go with this, how do I maintain? How are you planning on maintaining?
Well, again, they're not making it so that everyone absolutely needs to have it until 2 years from now. So we have 2 years. Well, really, I mean, the time is now, but there's 2 years to create a movement against it, essentially, is the way I see it. Speak out as much as you can, do things like what we're doing right now. The best weapon we have is information, and it remains to be seen if our fellow man's going to learn from past examples. There's always an alternative too. It might get to the point where it is better to just leave the U.S. if you still can. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Look, I want to know, like, okay, you don't have the real ID, so I take it that, do you have a driver's license?
I do have a driver's license. I don't have a real ID though.
Okay, but the real ID needs to be implemented. Now, how are you with a driver's license without it being a real ID?
Because I've had it for years.
When does it expire?
I still have a while before my driver's license expires. I want to say I have at least 3 years until my driver's license is expired.
Okay, I see where you've cut the mark. Mine expires very soon, and okay, so we have to go hypothetically with you. Let's say yours was expired. How do you cash a check? How do you deal in commerce?
Well, you are raising the point. I suppose that a lot of people are going to have to deal with. Just imagine that all of America, all of its people say we do not want to comply with this. Why isn't everybody bringing out the arguments from 1968 about why there shouldn't be a national ID because of how dangerous it is, how it could be grounds for a police state, and how it could be used politically to destroy citizens who are seen as enemies of certain political parties or what have you. I suppose that's what needs to happen. And again, that's why I get on here every day and speak out about this stuff. You're kind of calling in here and asking me, what more can I do? Sadly, I mean, I can only do so much. I'm an ordinary citizen who has the ability to do research just like anybody else and talk about why things shouldn't happen and why people shouldn't comply with agendas. Until we get more people to think along the same lines, I don't know. That's why we say, we are a group of people and we are getting pushed along. And as long as the rest of humanity goes along with the agendas, we kind of all get dragged along with it, even though we don't want to. That said, I mean, there always are alternatives. I never had to comply and get any of the pokey dokes. I was always able to find a way around all that. I imagine if I was absolutely in a tough spot, I could probably figure out a way to get around having real ID. So if you're closer to that situation, I'll start looking into it too. But for people who are in a position where they're going to have to get it sooner than later, yeah.
Well, no. Here's the thing. Okay, like for me, okay, I'm definitely the one. Okay, like, in other words, all these things that you talk about, in my head, I'm already formulating lawsuits. And maybe, others don't see it how I do, but I see it because recently I got the South Carolina newest Supreme Court judge to grant my Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act reasonable accommodation request to waive a law, because I'm on to something. Okay, being paralyzed, disabled, I'm learning that the ADA is a more powerful tool for me than the U.S. Constitution, because I know how to pierce the veil, and the 11th Amendment with their sovereign immunity, it doesn't exist through the ADA. It's complicated. I'm not going to get into it right now. It's very complex stuff. I'm in a district right now where I'm the only non-attorney. And the first time I came into the 4th district against property, well, actually it wasn't property taxes. It was against all mortgages are fraudulent, but that's a whole nother securitization, things that are very complex. But I was told that I'm the only non-attorney in the history of the district to ever come forth and make it through the 4th district. Now, this last round is with the treasurer, and I won my appeal. I'm telling you right now that it's sad that in my state where I'm at right now, no one challenges property taxes. And like you, I get angry because if everyone did, like you talk about, you know, with whatever your real ID is a topic, okay, fine. Okay, if everybody, the jab, so if everybody, I get it. But I'm past all that. It's not anymore if everybody. I'll accept the leadership position on that, but I need, like, I'm so happy that I have you on the line. I'm not even looking at the screen because last time I was loopy girl because I was nervous and, you know, I called unavailable and I was actually I took some Redline microbursts. They're off the shelf right now, but I'm here to tell everybody that those things are the bomb diggity, and I loaded up because I know what they are. And that's why they took them off the shelf. But I'm not on that tonight. Tonight, it's just me. I'm just high energy because I'm a solution lady. And when you got your topic, I was like, I better get on. And I wasn't really sure if I should because, you know, I've got a lot on the plate myself. But at this point, it's like somebody's got to say, okay, you know, I already have a bunch of other plans. But I think if you and I could talk about a realistic plan, you can utilize me in the courts because that's where it begins. Okay. Like as far as this real ID, I'm thinking, who can I sue? It doesn't happen overnight, but at least you got someone in there, me, working on it. Anyway, I go off on tangents because it's, I've been sequestered longer than the COVID stuff. Being in a wheelchair is not fun.
Sure. The problem with the courts is it can be very slow and costly. And again, the more immediate way to stop what they're doing is to get people to not comply.
It's costly when people get attorneys. That's the problem. It's just time consuming.
Right. Right. And that's something a lot of people don't have. That's why non-compliance is really, to me, the solution. People stop complying with their agendas. No, we're not going along with it. No, we don't need a real ID. We already have too many IDs. There's already too much surveillance. We don't need even more of it.
Right. Okay, well, you got my number now, and I hope you don't advertise it or whatever. I'm a very private person, even though I know this is a public call. But
I won't be
really
advertising your
as
phone number. I've never advertised anyone's number.
Well, I'm just a disclaimer, you know. I mean, just like maybe you're leery of me, you know. I don't know you personally. I mean, I have been watching you for years, and I'm thankful you took the call. And you know, perhaps you'll take my call again someday. And if you come up with any ideas with this real ID thing, please let me know.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, 213. You have a good night.
You too.
All right. Take care. Okie dokie. If anybody else wants to call in about tonight's topics, now is the time. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap it up because I do have a number of other things I still got to get done tonight as well. The courts are absolutely part of the control system. There were a lot of lawsuits filed in the time of Cooties 19 by people who saw everything wrong, and that didn't really do anything for the populace. Again, but had the populace been educated and not complied with anything, that would have worked. Had more people had the courage to say no, and that's the thing, there's a lack of courage. Everyone was made afraid. They all thought they were going to die. They needed to go out and get the pokey doke. They needed to do their part. I just the TV. I mean, I'm sure your state was a lot like mine. I live in Washington State. Nonstop propaganda in the commercials. So many commercials that were like, if you have not gotten your shot, you could be responsible for the death of elderly people around you. Do your part. Get the poke. It's like, God, look at this crap. They're just running around the clock. Commercial after commercial like that. Seems that most people who got the poke were the ones who ended up getting sick. That's what I noticed. I see you, Studio 208 in the chat. Thanks, man. Appreciate you too. All right. Well, if we don't have more calls, we can leave it there. I don't know where our callers went to. We used to always have a lot of callers. Going once, going twice, going 3 times. All right. If you got here late, feel free to rewind. We covered the 3 big stories buzzing for May 7th. Again, the war in Pakistan being waged by India. Happened very early their time at 1:44 a.m. Military attack. Couldn't be any more Jesuit. And we got Real ID going live in the U.S. and the Conclave at the Vatican. All by the numbers. Yeah, it is late for you East Coast people. That's another reason to wrap it up. Where's the West Coast at? My following has always been on the East Coast. West Coast is all listening to NPR right now. All right, Truce. Oh, Ryan's about to hang up. We got a call. All right. 587, what's up?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, can I order a large pepperoni?
That's the best you can do from Canada. Come on, man.
Can I get a vegetarian meat liver?
Oh my God. I'm trying to think of some comedians that came out of Canada. Mike Myers. Are there any other funny people outside of Canada? God. Oh my God, that was terrible. All right, yeah. We'll leave it there. I suspect Friday, 5-9, Bad Boy Records 59. I suspect that might be the day the Diddy trial picks up. Jim Carrey's Canadian? Is that right? I didn't realize Jim Carrey was Canadian, huh? Is Tom Green Canadian? Tom Green, he might be Canadian. Yes, sir. Demolition Man coming. Hold on, John. I'm confused by that one. I remember Demolition Man with Mr. Stallone and Wesley Snipes. And Sandra Bullock's in that too, isn't she? Ryan Reynolds is Canadian. He is the worst actor in the history of actors, Ryan Reynolds. I can't watch a movie with Ryan Reynolds in it. He just ruins it every time. The worst. The absolute worst of all time. Without a shadow of a doubt. Ryan Reynolds. Horrible. Horrible. I never heard anyone in my life say Ryan Reynolds was funny. Are we saying Wesley Snipes is Canadian? Wesley Snipes? I don't think Wesley Snipes is Canadian. Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald's funny. He's Canadian? Okay, Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald is definitely funny. R.I.P. Ben Bernanke. I know that name, but I can't think who that is off the top. All right, so Canada's got some people, huh? I don't know how Ryan Reynolds came up as is Ryan Reynolds considered a comedian? I don't even know how his name came up. Yeah, we covered Romulus and Remus. Now their names equal 214. Going with Rome's birthday on 21/4. Yeah, we covered that. Mark Normand. I'm gonna have to go through a list sometime of all the Canadian celebrities. All right. Alan Watt. Okay. Yeah, John Candy. That's right. Canadian bacon. John Candy. R.I.P. You guys want me to tell you what they did to John Candy? Hold on. I got an old post on poor John Candy. What did they do to poor John? I can't remember it off the top, but I know they got him by the numbers. Oh my God. Did Google get rid of my post on John Candy too? Wow. Wow. My post on John Candy no longer exists on my old website. It's crazy how many posts Google has deleted from there. Why did they have to get rid of my post on John Candy's death? Again, Blogspot didn't used to be owned by Google, but they've bought it since and I put a lot of work into that. I had 30-some thousand posts on there. And now so often when I go back to look for old work I did, it just doesn't exist anymore. It's been deleted. I might have to do a redo on John Candy. John Candy was a funny guy. I liked John Candy when I was a kid. Poor John Candy died at 43 on March 4th. Day can be written 3443. RIP equals 43. Killing equals 43. Murder equals 34. And there's a lot more to it as well. I honestly forgot off the top what the ritual was. There was something a lot more to it. Something weird about a phone call that happened that day from another actor. It's all vaguely in my mind, but unbelievable. My post on John Candy is gone. Someday that whole site will be gone. Just like 20-some YouTube channels have been deleted. Oh, man. Can't even keep up my work on John Candy's death. What a tragedy. And that's why I always say you guys should support the books and get them in print before everything's gone. Without a shadow of a doubt, in the future, every last millimeter of my work will be deleted from the internet at some point in the future. The only way you'll ever be able to share any of the work I did is what was left in print. And that's why, again, sometimes I feel bad that I haven't finished my books, but then nobody reads the books. Everyone's just stuck on the internet, right where they want everybody, in digital cyberspace where everything is easily edited and removed. Yeah, exactly. No, I'm laughing at your comment about how the John Candy post may have brought the NWO to a screeching halt. Exactly, like that was going to happen. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, why do they have to delete my post on John Candy's death? Are you kidding me? I'm blown away by how many things I go back to look for on that site and it's gone. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The real ID, the credit score that will be attached to it in the future. Good luck for the truth seekers. Tommy Chong was Canadian, really. I'm gonna have to go through this list of famous Canadians. All right, interesting. All right, I also got to get off, you guys. I do have other things to do tonight. We don't have any other callers, so thanks again to everyone who hit the like and the share. And until next time.